Hi, everyone who's watching. My name's Arnav. I am head of PR relations at Interverge, and today I am super excited to be with an amazing guest, Mr. Jim Bruner. He is from the Mezzacello farm in just right outside of Columbus, Chicago, close to downtown. And he has an amazing story that he's going to talk a little bit about, what he learned throughout his journey of innovation, all of the different really cool things that he's working on at his farm that he's building, his futuristic farm. And I guess without me talking more further, I'll hand it off to Mr. Bruner to explain a little bit about, just intro, a little bit about himself, his journey, or his vision and his journey so far.
Yes, I live in downtown Columbus, around 11 blocks from the state capitol. And I've started a farm because what we have been doing with agriculture and applied STEM is insufficient, in my opinion, because 80% of the STEM population lives in cities. And what we do is we take kids out of the city to the country to see what ecologies look like, what farm ecologies look like, how food is grown, bust them back into the city and say, now make sense of that. And I just don't think that's fair. That's not the way I think. That's not the way I thought as a child. And when I had the opportunity to create what I call a food oasis in the middle of a food desert, I jumped at the chance. So what Mezzacello Urban Farm is it's 1/3 of an acre in downtown Columbus, right on the main street of our city. It's a 5-lane street with buses and mail trucks and Amazon trucks and tons of traffic. And it's southern facing. The house was built before Columbus was a city. It was a farmhouse. And we bought it in 2017 and have slowly been converting it into a full-scale urban farm that is run entirely on renewable solar, wind, and battery technology, and robots, automation, and coding. And then we also have animals, chickens, ducks, rabbits, quail, guinea pigs, crickets, microorganisms, koi fish, tilapia, catfish, and a few others that are all integrated into enclosed ecologies, but in downtown Columbus. Because I believe that kids should see nature and man together, because that's the future. We know we need nutrition. We know we're going to need food. We know culture rotates around food. We also need kids to have skill. We have to have ability. We have to know what sustainability looks like. So we created Mezzacello mostly on our dime just to model that. And the most interesting thing about it is how easily kids adapt to the idea. It's remarkable. They come here, they've never seen a chicken before in their entire life. It is the most dangerous looking animal in the world to them. Filthy, angry animal, especially the roosters. And by the end of the week of a summer camp here, that rooster's on their head. Because now they understand its role in the ecology, they understand their role in the ecology, they understand what each organism needs, how to give it, and why, and how to write code to make it happen. That, I think, is the big innovation of Mezzacello, is that I'm allowing kids to be kids in their world, in my world. So I like to think of it as agricultural Willy Wonka. You're going to come here, and it's going to be a farm. It's going to look like an urban yard, but you're going to have to design everything that a farm would need in the middle of the city. So yeah, you are going to build a water purification plant. Yeah, you are going to write the code to run the pumps and everything in Python, and you're going to have to deploy it onto an Arduino. You are also going to have to make that waterproof. You're also going to have to pull the power. You're going to have to understand how much amperage you're going to need, what wattage you're going to need, how much wattage you're going to get from those solar panels. There's going to be a lot of tears. There's going to be a lot of math, and there's going to be a lot of laughter and joy. And kids aren't going to want to leave at the end of a workshop or a camp. And they don't want to leave. But what they do is they say, oh, I now see the relationship between this and this. And they go home with new ideas. And can I give you a prime example from the last week?
Yeah, of course.
A lot of contract works with schools, especially in winter, when Mezzacello really is not a functional farm. it's a house with a farm attached to it that is going through stasis. So everything covered in, but about 21 centimeters of ice and snow right now. So nothing is really working. So I take my ecologies to schools. I take the animals, I take the technology, and I take what I call a biodome.
Yeah.
And it's essentially a geodesic playground toy made out, it's a quarter scale, and it's made out of plastic and 3D printed dodecahedrons. And what the kids have to do is figure out how to put the dodecahedrons together, because this is a school and we're bringing ducks in. And you have to rapidly create a watertight, waterproof, duck mess proof environment on that teacher's new carpet. So getting this biodome built quickly matters.
Yeah.
Well, kids have never built a biodome. They've played them maybe on a geodesic, but they don't understand the idea of a geodesic. And explaining it to them takes forever. Well, I don't have forever. So what my high school intern and I did was we wrote 4 scripts on a piece of paper, and then we cut the paper up so it folded into a book, and it became, in essence, RNA. And on this book, once you fold it correctly, it will tell you how to make one of the 4 proteins that you're going to need to make this dome. You're either going to have to make a 10-sided circle, you're going to have to make an X with 1 dodecahedron on the top functioning as an ion, or you're going to have a decahedron in the middle with 5 dodecahedrons pointing down. The only thing you need to know is that the green or the white need to go into the dodecahedron. The shape itself is going to emerge. And they built that in 5 minutes.
Wow.
5 minutes.
And that's the power of, yeah.
Stick it into the hole, whatever hole it is. This X goes into this ion. That's a pentagon. There's the top. 5 around the sides. We're done. The last protein team, unfold these 3 shower curtains, put it on the bottom, take Velcro, attach it to the top, cover the dome, insert the ducks. Done. Then take it apart.
And then you have ducks in classrooms.
And then I have ducks in the classroom. Oh. And they pooped in that biodome. And then the kids had to figure out, once we looked at the poop under a microscope, which I also brought, like, you have to avoid that. Yeah. And now let's transfer this biodome from a dome ecology into a cell wall.
Yeah.
How is that histoplasmosa going to infect that cell? How are you going to protect it? Then they just started building proteins to go on the outside of the biodome cell that makes sense. If the toxoplasmosis protein looks like this, build something that will lock with it. But wait, what about histoplasmosis? It looks like this. Let's build this protein. And in 15 minutes, I had kids understanding the membrane of a cell, the response factor of antigens, and programming proteins on a dome with ducks in it to protect them at the macro and molecular level.
And these are middle schoolers we're talking about, right?
Middle school, ages 9 to 11.
Oh my gosh.
And then they wrote stories about it. Yeah. And I think that is what learning through agriculture really ought to be, because kids don't have limitations that tired, well-trained teachers do, right? I don't want to think about how to reinvent the wheel every time I do it. Well, then don't. Give kids a dome and then tell them the floor is lava. Now what do?
Yeah.
You get incredibly creative, because in this instance, the floor was in fact lava, because the teacher put the fear of God in me that if those ducks poop on my new carpet, because this building was finished last year, you're doomed. So the kids knew, what do we use this big blue bowl for? When we lift the dome up, because it's geodesic, it all comes together in one piece. We move it aside and we secure the ducts. We have to roll the protein up from the edges to the middle and put it in that, and then it'll get purified. And we'll use a new protein team to lay a new floor. Then all we have to do is read the instructions, put the Velcro on, attach to the dome, and the next class builds it in 5 minutes. Wow. Oh, and we filmed it. We had a documentary team film the entire thing so that we could use it in the summertime to teach kids how to build domes wherever we need them on the farm. Like, for example, if we're growing cabbage and we have cabbage worms, build a duck geodesic over the cabbage, put a shower curtain on it, and you're done. Here's the proteins to do it. Here's the video, play.
Yeah.
So that's basically my methodology in a nutshell. And the reason I say that I'm perfectly coordinated to do this is because of a perfect storm of three things in my life. One, I spent 28 years in STEM education. I'm fascinated by the way that science, technology, engineering, art, which is really STEAM, and math all come together, and how we solve problems that we don't see initially until we start reframing and making connections, like the connection between a biodome and the dual membrane of a cell, and how things get into the cell, or the nucleus, right? The nucleosome. How do viruses get into the nucleosome? Just scale it down 10 times more, right? Second thing, I have a serious health condition that requires fresh food. So building a robotic, solar and wind powered farm makes absolute sense. I can't afford to buy fresh food at 300% markup. So instead, I'll spend $100,000 building a farm that will teach kids how to build a future that we all need. And yeah, it makes sense to me. Don't write it on paper. The third thing is I spent 20 years as a board member and president of the Ohio Invention Convention. So my jam is empowering kids to become leaders through innovation. That's what I love to do. And so I basically turned my yard and my home into a kingdom for invention. And it works really well, especially when it fails. That's my favorite, because when it fails, the kids learn, wow, okay, so now we have more data. That's like what they say. We can't do it that way. How would we do it differently? And then various places around my gardens, I have old tables that have been donated to me from restaurants, glass top tables from office store centers and restaurants give me glass tables. And my interns, who are middle school kids who work for me, they help me mount them on the side of sheds, paint them white on the back, instant whiteboards. This was the failure. How are you going to fix it? And just kids start drawing. They just start drawing in crayon, in permanent marker, in dry erase markers. I don't care. You just can't use pencil unless you have paper. Then you just tape paper to the glass. But problems are solved right there, and then they're fixed right there. And then they present what they learned, and that's how my methodology works. It makes teachers really nervous, especially multi-million-dollar science classrooms with equipment and new carpet floors with ducks. I took ducks, rabbits, chickens. We took koi in there, so we had to have a watertight 8-foot tank to hold koi. And then we brought tilapia in, and the kids had to engineer a system for not only oxygenating the water, but also creating a current with pumps, because tilapia evolved from sharks, and they need to move through moving water to breathe. They're river fish. You put them in a pond with just molecular water, they will suffocate. The air doesn't move across their gills. So kids engineered that in one class period. Here's the problem, fix it. Here's your power. You have this much power in your battery. You have one solar panel. By the way, we're inside of a classroom. The window has what are called gambrels on it, and any shadow on the solar panel, and you lose 80% of your power. Good luck, and may the odds ever be in your favor. Don't drown that fish. And it worked.
No, definitely. That's amazing. That's incredible. Now, I want to transition into what is, if you were in like a couple sentences to describe your favorite activity that you've done with students, your favorite moment in your Mezzacello journey. Is there any one moment that sticks out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. It's the moment when my two chief interns took over in a situation where I didn't know what was going on. A child was in danger of messing with amperage they didn't understand. And the interns not only explained amperage in a way that I now use to teach kids, but they diffused the situation and wrote an entire design challenge about it in a way that I had never, ever thought about. They related the pressure of heat the pressure of light and the pressure of electricity to pressure within the body, and explained that if you played with that amperage anymore, you were going to cause the electricity to basically have high blood pressure, and it was going to cause the wires to explode and start spewing out electricity, and the electricity is going to go to the water. And in this case, it's you. And I'm like, that is absolutely brilliant. And then when the parents asked what happened, those kids took responsibility. Of course, the buck stops here. But the fact that they already had the plan mapped out for how this could never happen again, what they were going to do to build a breaker to keep this from ever happening again, and for the format of the design challenge to get kids to understand that what amperage, current, and voltage really are.
Yeah.
And I use that to teach electricity now. I would never have thought about it that way, because all I would see is danger and lawsuits, whereas they saw danger, and the kid needs to understand why. They're curious why. And their why was more important than cover my insurance, right? That's why Mezzacello is amazing.
Yeah.
Because we collaborate.
And it's an amazing space where they can really try out so many different things. They can, like, it's self-exploration. And
Yes.
I remember talking about all of these like special like ecology lessons that you put into these what is it you put into your activities at the farm. It's really amazing. Now, like, what kind of moving forward, what is one lesson that you like to teach all of your students? Like, what would you say is it the most important thing in all of these processes that they learn about?
I know this answer, and it might confound people, but it's ultra important. The one thing that kids need to have a deep understanding of at Mezzacello is the quantum scale. They need to understand quantum electrodynamics. And everyone's like, no, they don't. Yes, they do. If you really want to understand what chlorophyll is, if you really want to understand how vitamin D synthesis works, if you really want to understand why that rooster's tail or that peacock feather is so beautiful, or how vision works, you must understand quantum electromechanics. And so what I do is I have nesting dolls, which I call the levels of reality. And I put the nesting dolls in a glass dome. And the glass dome represents the ecology. This is the ecology this animal is in. Remove the ecology, now you have the animal. Open the animal, inside is an organ. Let's talk about organs. What do they do? Why are they important? Open the organ, inside that is a compound. Let's talk about compounds. Blood, mucus, plasma, whatever. Let's break that down. Let's talk about molecules. Understand what a molecule is. Break that open, there's the atom. Break that open and you destroy a city, or you have fundamental particles like quarks and leptons and neutrinos. Why are those important? Break those apart and you have subatomic particles. Break those apart and now you are at the photon and the electron. And break that apart and you're at the 10th level, and we don't know what it is, but everything requires it. Now, everything you look at, I want you to tell me what level of reality that you're looking at, and they can do it. I'm looking at why plant leaves are green. I know it has something to do with nitrogen. I know it has something to do with carbon and something to do with magnesium, and I think it's at the cellular level, but it might be at the compound or molecular level. But I know it's at that level, and let's talk about it. These are kids telling me what level they're operating at because they have a fundamental understanding of what quantum QED actually means in the real world to them. And the fact that they will never have a photograph as beautiful as a sunset that their eye sees because of quantum electrodynamics. And they can relate that to their parents, and it freaks parents out to no end. Why does my child know about quarks? And why do they know there are 6 quarks? And why does that matter? And for the kid to tell them that at the dinner table is a W for me. Big old W. Because I don't believe anything is going to be happening in the next 20 years that is not going to include nanotechnology or quantum grade understanding of physics, even in food, especially in food. So yeah, that's my favorite lesson.
Wow, I mean, I would have never related the quantum levels to biology, to ecology, wow, that is amazing.
So coming back to the QED piece, the quantum electrodynamics piece, the reason it matters is because I have kids coming that are curious about food and veterinary medicine, for example, right? Well, without a deeper understanding of how molecules and atoms actually create health, you can't really understand what vitamins are going to be doing, what nutrients are doing at the micro level, where it matters, right? And in terms of veterinary medicine, without a deeper understanding of why viruses act the way they do, what their interfaces are at the molecular and atomic levels, you're not going to understand that very well either. But as a middle schooler, understanding that the small world acts differently because mechanically it's fundamentally different, and how that relates to the larger world is an important distinction that I want to power children with. Because the moment we take a microscope and look at an iPhone, a sunset on an iPhone, we see exactly why the human eye is a million times better at seeing a sunset than an iPhone is of displaying it, because the limitations are now understood at the quantum level, and it's like physical for them at this point. If I can empower kids to think about nature as a complete system and not just a convenient system, then I've done my job. That's it. That's my favorite lesson.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And like the connections between, that deep quantum level and then biology and like what really we see in the world is incredible.
And most importantly, what we can't see in the world.
Yeah.
The things we have to take on faith, but have destroyed civilizations, right?
Yeah.
This summer, I'll be teaching a new project called Project Innovating Nutrient Capture and Adaptation. And it's turning my food gardens into Incan terraces to optimize surface area and water retention and reclamation and purification. And so it's basically all the lessons that we've learned from the Inca Empire and all the lessons we learned from the colonization matrix of the Spanish Empire, and putting them to work for a 21st century culture that really needs everybody to come up. We really need to make food and water, equity and health something for everybody. And the only way to do that is innovation and empathy. And that's what I built here, both those things. So I'm most proud of that, I think. And this latest snowstorm broke the spine of my chicken run. So all the snow collapsed in the chicken run, which is where all the wiring for the solar panels goes through. But because the kids understood at a molecular level that wire needs to be elastic, they had put pigtails in the solar wiring. So the solar panels are still producing power, even though the spine is broken, because the pigtail broke off and it flexed. So I'm like, yay, I'm glad kids understand that's how viruses infect cells, because that's exactly how viruses infect cells. And they had that lesson and they engineered it into the power system. And now I just have to fix that after the snow melts. But kids built it, and next summer they'll build it better and back.
Now, kind of transitioning into like lessons that you have for, I know the main audience of this is students, but also for teachers, right? You're an amazing STEM educator. You have over 20 years of background in that, you said, but also like now you're integrating so many interactive activities, a completely unconventional way of teaching biology and like the general concepts of innovation. So what advice would you have for other teachers who are trying to bring these kind of lessons into their own classrooms?
Reframe standards. Reframe standards. Try to think about, because I teach to standards. I have to, because I work with formal educators, so I get it. Reframe the standards as goalposts, and then create a game that takes the kids from one goalpost to another, and then to another, and then to another. And then when it works, keep that, and then just change the item at play in that game. So for example, the biodome, I could teach it either as a class in natural sciences and ecology. I could teach it as a class in thermodynamics, put a fan in there or a heater in there. Let's see what happens. I could also teach it as cellular biology, or I could teach it as molecular mechanics, right? What are the standards? What are the goalposts? And then ask the kids to help be creative in the game. You're always going to have kids that are not going to want to do this. There's nothing to be done about the human condition. That's the case. What you need to do is the kids that make the game fun, give them incentive to make the game fun for everyone. And then it becomes a competition. And even the most surly kid who doesn't want to learn does want to compete. And they do want to win. And yeah, it takes a little bit more energy, but the goal is to hit standards, right? Well, if you hit standards and give kids other answers at the same time, it reinforces what they've learned. And I still use Bloom's taxonomy. I do want, at the basic scale, vocabulary. I do want compare and contrast, and I need synthesis. By changing the goalpost to match what your standards are, the game hits all of those as by default, because they have to understand the rules, they have to understand the outcomes, and they need to understand the cheat codes to win. And that is all of Bloom's taxonomy, in my opinion. And it's just a more fun way to teach. And when you do need to fall back on those tried and trues, you can. But you can throw kids a bone every once in a while and say, I'm flexible in the way that I can look at the world, and I want to see what it looks like from your perspective. Let's play. I think we need more of that in education.
100%, yeah. Now, kind of transitioning back to, like backtracking a little bit. You mentioned a little bit about your journey and like how you have had a very unconventional path.
Yeah.
Along that path, like what would you say is one of the advice, like pieces of advice you have when trying to figure out what like we wanted to do? Like, because I know a lot of students who are watching this, they have all of these different interests, but they don't really know what they want to do, and they need to make that choice soon. So what would you say is the guiding factor in that? How do they make those decisions, and what influenced you in your unconventional path?
I have two answers to that. One, know yourself. Understand yourself. Understand what motivates you. That includes, what are you naturally talented at? What do you find fascinating? For me, it's systems. I have always been fascinated by how things work. I wanted to be an engineer, but the path in front of me to become an engineer was too math heavy. And I had zero resources to understand that I'm actually really good at math after I reframe what math really is, right? I didn't know myself well enough to get the help that I actually needed to do the things I didn't think I could do. That's number one. Understand you are unique. Find a way to make your unique talents work for you. You don't see it when you're a kid. It will make difference the moment you start paying taxes. What is unique about you will become powerful. What's unique about you now is a liability, your kids. But it never changes. So I have 3 degrees. I have a degree in industrial design because I want to build things. I have a degree in computer science and programming because I'm interested in making the world work, and the internet came of age while I was coming of age. So I thought, why not? And then I'm working on a degree in anthropology because I'm interested in what motivates people to do things. All 3 of those things are baked in to the nature of my personality. I'm curious. I'm curious how things work. Once I understood that, my path was obvious. And that brings me to the second point. All the education you're going to get, it may not matter at the micro scale, but on the macro scale, the moment you can reframe something that you learned and use it in a new way is the moment you become one of the most powerful people on the planet. Because the world needs way more people who are willing to be wrong and think outside the box. And then when they are wrong, to know it, say it, move on, and make it better. That's what we need more of. And the only way to get there is to use your natural talent and use everything you've learned in new ways. Because old keys do not open new doors. And there are only 2 pathways to that. Know yourself, know what you're good at, and what you're talented at naturally. And if it's YouTube makeup tutorials, great. Can you reframe that into something that's useful to society in a different way? Maybe. And everything you learn is going to matter. And if it doesn't, find a way to make it matter. That's it. That's my advice.
Amazing. Yeah, that's incredible.
The big part is getting to know yourself, though. Everyone wants to be what they think everyone wants them to be. And that's an impossibility. You can't be someone you're not. You can't. And we have seen the horrible emotional scars. Well, I have seen them personally. I'm still seeing them. Of what happens when society forces people to be something that they're not. It's okay if you're not what society thinks you are. It's not okay for you to live a hollow life, not being what you're naturally good at. That's cruel. Be who you are, but justify it, defend it, make it useful. That's how you become sustainable.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Do you have like anything that you wanted to share with the students? Because these are students in innovation, students interested in, making the world, solving problems, making the world a better place. Any message that you would like to share? Kind of like opening up the floor.
I need children, all people. I need everybody to understand that every human being is a bubble. We are all bubbles. And to be a bubble requires two things. You need to have an internal life that keeps the bubble a bubble. And you also need to understand that the environment that the bubble is in is also pushing it. So you need to find balance. And occasionally one bubble will find another bubble and they'll create a colony of bubbles. And that's great. And you want that. But you need to understand that being a bubble is an inherently fragile enterprise. And if it pops, it's okay. There are more bubbles. But you cannot forget that life is inherently dangerous. You're going to fail. You're going to cry. You're going to be made fun of. That's just going to happen. It's a requirement of nature. If you're a fragile bubble that pops and then said, well, that's that, you're a terrible bubble. I need kids to understand that they need balance in their life. If everything comes down to one moment in their life, that is the worst book I have ever read. And I have zero interest in reading their life story because life is drama, and popping bubbles that don't blow themselves back up again are not good stories, and they make terrible leaders. So understand your relationship to the world. The world is not out to pop you. The world is out to be something for you to pop into. Rebuild that interior, be a bubble again, understand the world is pushing back. It's not against you. Everyone is for their bubble. And to be a successful human being, you not only have to care about your bubble, but you need to be there to help other bubbles expand, because you know what it is to have a bubble that is fragile. And that's empathy, and that's civilization. And everyone is so convinced that cruelty is the natural operating station of nature. And that is not true. The natural operating station of nature is sustainability. It just happens to be that humans are really bad at sustainability because we crave convenience over natural systems. The bubbles pop easy. Understand the bubble to the quantum level, and you'll understand life. Why does the bubble form at all? I mean, that's really what I want kids to understand. Life isn't fragile. Attitudes are. You can survive anything. I have. Everyone can. It's your mindset. Understand the bubble from the inside and the outside. Understand that the outside doesn't say, yay, I popped that bubble. It doesn't care. It isn't cruel. It just needs to be a sustainable system. And you need to be a sustainable internal system. You need pride. You need confidence. You are the only person that can give yourself pride and confidence. That is what sustains the bubble. That's what keeps the bubble firm. That's what allows you to give other people the capacity to shine and glow. And if you're looking for it outside, you are going to find nature. And that is not going to be sustainable because nature is expecting you to be a sensible bubble. And if all you're going to do is pop, you have no value to a system that is blind and doesn't care. Because we crave convenience, nature craves those atoms back. She wants them back. And you need to understand your role in those atoms. That's all I got to say. I mean, that is the role. Nature doesn't care. It just wants the atoms back. It's not cruel. It's sustainable. Humans by nature are not. We need to get better at it. That's why Mezzacello exists.
Amazing. That is incredible. Well, I mean, unless you have anything else, do you have any
I love
final
that.
words?
I need that recording, though. I think that was one of the best speeches I've ever given. A little bit bubble heavy, but I need kids to understand that bubbles are enclosed systems. They have an inside and an outside. You need to be both of those. I think that's an important idea. I might be able to find a more elegant, articulate way to say it, but it's important for kids to understand their impact on the world and the world's impact on them, that it's a two-way street.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me and having this session. I mean, it's incredible. It was absolutely amazing what you were, everything that you were talking about. And I think it's going to be really, really relevant to all of you who are watching. So yeah, I mean, if you have any questions for Mr. Bruner, I'm sure you can search his name up and he'll come up and you can find it.
Mezzacello.org.
Huh?
Go to mezzacello.org and you can contact me there.